end product. So would you say that your autism helps you with your cooking ability and your structure and, you know, doing the recipes and so forth?
Yes, because it's all written down for me, all signposted, got all the ingredients. So it's preparation, cooking, out on a plate, and hopefully it's going to be eaten.
So what's your favourite meal you like to cook? What's your favourite?
Beef stroganoff.
And what's your favourite dessert?
Apple strudel.
Right. So we know where to come then for a meal.
As long as you're able, as long as you pay the fees at the door, no problem.
So we have what will it be next? Will it be? I'm just trying to think of the show where people go along and have food.
I think you're talking about MasterChef, are you?
Not MasterChef, it's the other one. I can't think of it at the moment. It's Come Dine With Me. So it'd be Chrissy's Come Dine With Me. Or would you find that sort of would you find that experience quite stressful if you've got people coming in and you've got to, like you mentioned before, socialise with them? Would you rather be in the background to cook and prepare the meal and then just say, you know, here's your meal? Would you want to sit down with them and, you know, have that small talk with them?
No, I have to really get to know people.
So would you find that really uncomfortable then?
I would find it very, very uncomfortable. Even though I'm male, I do like the females, but it's trying to bridge the gap and say, enter my world so I can enter yours.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your family tree. So you've got an interest in family history and the family trees. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it all started in 1978, and as you do, you look up a record, say the marriage certificate, but then you notice your great-grandfather has done some copper plate writing. Well, this is the 1820s. You're thinking, he hadn't the right to be writing, not being a minor. This is unheard of. Well, it was that copper plate writing that made me take up calligraphy. And of course, seeing the family tree, I then engaged the family tree, it's a genealogy. And in those days, it's free to do, and it's quite easy to get the records because they're all condensed in books in Staffordshire. And my surname belongs to North Staffordshire, and I managed to get back to the 1700s within a week or two.
Wow. So did that take a lot of research, you know, were you sort of like tunnel visioned and focused on what you were doing at that time? Very
tunnel vision. I would even go without food because I was getting very excited at seeing the names of all these relatives I'd never seen. Unfortunately, there were a few deaths along the way, along with smallpox. And you could see the migration, them going from, because they ended up in Silverdale up until the 1900s, but they'd come in from Madeley. And, but they had been in the Bartomley, Alsager area for about 400 years.
So what other interesting facts did you find out from the family tree?
Well, I'm related to Wedgwood and Mintons and Daltons. And I think this does help me. I think this is where I get my flashes of inspiration from.
So do you think by doing the family tree as that sort of like, because it's quite detailed and quite thorough, because a lot of people out there in the public domain, because obviously you come across very articulate, very well spoken, very educated, would you say that a lot of people may turn around and think, well, he's not autistic or he doesn't have autism. How does that make you feel as a person living with autism?
It actually makes me feel good because if they can't tell I'm autistic, then, well, that's their problem. Trying to put my case over, as with Capita or Atos, on a medical, that's a totally different thing. You then have to say, look, this is how I behave, this is why I go shopping, or this is why I will not go out, this is why I don't go to Blackpool because it's too noisy, there's too many people.
So would you say that your condition is a very hidden condition?
Oh, very much so. And of course, it doesn't help with me. As you said, I speak the Queen's English. My mother was a Londoner, and she taught me how to speak because I was deaf at the time. And of course, I had to then go through the regime with a speech therapist to speak. But that helps because of the phonetics, the breakdown of languages, and it helps me to speak other languages as well.
And do you think that we shouldn't be putting people on the spectrum all in one box and just saying that you've got autism, so that's how each and every other person with autism behave? Would you say that every person with autism is unique and different? Every
person is unique. They're little treasures all on their own. No one person is the same.
So before we came into the studio today, you were telling me a little bit about your son and his aspirations for the future. What does he want to be when he grows up?
He wants to be a businessman.
So what does he want to do?
I don't know what he's going to sell, but he's quite adamant he wants to do this computer course because that will help him make up his own tax returns and national insurance contribution.
So he knows all about that at that young age?
Yes, he does. And this is where he's totally different to me. I would not, I didn't know which way the world was spinning at his age, whereas he wants to be a businessman. He's going to have a Ferrari at a certain age. He's going to have his own house, and I can come and live with him. I'm looking forward to that, to leaving on the lights and the heating. And
so he's got it all planned out?
Yes, he has.
So tell me, when you meet your son now, because you're both on the spectrum, does he understand at that young age about, that his dad's got autism?
Oh yes, he's a very gentle soul towards me anyway. He's well built. He's within an inch of my height, even though he's only 15. But he's a gentle lad. And I think he's sympathetic towards other people because even in his own class, he'll go up knowing that somebody's struggling and say, asking what he can do to help them to understand what the teacher's trying to ask of them.
So throughout your life, really, you've had, Chris, what I would call a real challenge, because not only growing up throughout your childhood into adult life, into old age now, that you've had a huge struggle in the way that you've had a family and you've had a child and you've had to bring up a child. It's quite incredible, really, because a lot of people on the spectrum don't have children or don't have relationships. So it must be a really, really difficult and challenging, because you're not a neurotypical person. You've had to bring up children, and I know one of my friends recently who's he was going to be coming on one of my shows, but he may come on a later date. But I think he's in his 20s, and he's just had a baby boy. Well, he hasn't had a baby boy, his wife's had a baby boy, and I think it's quite remarkable that people with autism and disabilities have children.
It just might be how autism affects me, but I would do anything for my son. And we have to teach our children the way they learn rather than the way we want to teach them. That way they open up. Yes, he'll get himself into his computer, and I'm having to update that every 2 or 3 years. As you know, technology changes. He makes up his own films, makes up his own music. But the day-to-day bringing up of my son is done by my wife, up until the time of her illness. And this is what's caused the problem. My wife's illness has now, well, my son and my wife no longer live with me because of her needs, and our needs are not being met.
Yeah, but there was a period of your time where you were, where you were living with your son and looking after him with your wife. So did you find that challenging, or did you even find it more challenging for somebody who's on the spectrum?
Yeah, I found it very challenging because you can't be tired with children. You cannot be angry with children, not if you want a child that's going to be well-grounded, wanting to do what mum and dad wants rather than what he wants. Because autistic children, unless you rein them in, they will go and do whatever they want. But of course, some of that is not acceptable behaviour.
And as we know, there's not a manual out there on how to be a parent growing up, being autistic. Chris, it's been such a pleasure to have you on my show. You know, you've created a real good insight to a grown man living with autism. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for joining me on today's show. Thank you everybody for watching We Are Unique today. Join me next month where we'll be talking more about disabilities and conditions. And again, if you want to be a guest on my show, do email the studio at We Are Unique, and I'll follow that up. And maybe you can be sitting in Chris's seat talking to me about your experiences with disabilities and autism. Have a great month.